Hello, and a very big welcome to everyone. I'm Xinna Wang. I'm a director at BDO, the accountancy and business advisory service firm. I'm also co-chairing the London operation of ECBF, England-China Business Forum. So it is great to see so many have joined today's session. It's great to see so many friends and colleagues, old and new, joining us from all business sectors and academic backgrounds. So I understand that geographically you are actually based in Europe, Asia, Africa, and I believe some are joining from the US. Sustainability is the one factor that unites us. So as your host today, before I start, I'd like to just mention a few housekeeping rules. The first is the session is being recorded today for those who have registered their interest but unable to attend. Questions to the speakers are welcome. You can put through the questions at the bottom of the screen through the Q&A session. We'll try to answer as many as we can towards the end of the session. For those who may not be familiar, England-China Business Forum acts as a bridge linking China and the UK business world. Since its launch in 2013, it provided a platform for Chinese and business and professionals to Chinese and British business professionals to meet, share, collaborate, and create opportunities. So BDO UK has been a long-term supporter and an active member of ECBF. For many years, through our China advisory service team, a team of bilingual specialists who provide accounting, tax, and advisory services through the UK and China corridor. At BDO, we believe that businesses have an economic imperative and an ethical responsibility to do what we can to ensure a thriving, sustainable world. It is no longer enough to operate a commercially viable business with the sole aim to maximizing shareholder value. The society is asking much more of business. Does it have purpose? Does it demonstrate good citizenship? Is it doing enough to protect the environment and combat climate change? So sustainability is a global challenge, and its development requires collaborations across countries and regions, which is why we're delighted today to be joined by a panel of speakers who I consider are visionaries in their respective fields, who have long recognized the importance of working together, the importance of collaboration. So most of them are actually running sustainability projects across continents. So for example, Dr. Li Yao runs smart energy projects in the UK and Nigeria, helping businesses and communities accelerate to the net zero future. Prince Ezebuchi looks outward to bring investment from China and the world into the Africa continent. We then have Professor Xiaolan Fu, who comes from an academic background with wide experience of advising multiple lateral institutions on the use of technology in the international development. But first and foremost, allow me to introduce Sir Tim Smit, KBE, the legendary founder of the award-winning Eden project in Cornwall, which opens its doors to the visitors in 2000, and it has since received more than 22 million visitors and boosted the local economy. He's the executive chairman of the Eden Project International, the development arm of Eden, which aims to have an Eden project on every continent by 2025. So Tim, could you tell us about the current projects in China.
Hello, everybody. I'm a big fan of China, as everybody who knows me knows, and I'm really privileged to be part of this gang having a conversation with you about sustainability. And I feel very honored to be in the company of my fellow guests, and I hope to finish on time so I don't overstay my welcome. I think one of the key things I've learned, I'm probably by far the oldest person on this call, is that one of the greatest breaks to the progress that we are all seeking to make is male vanity. The vanity to be the leader, to have your brand smash everything. And at a very old age, I've discovered that the most constructive thing in the world is to let go of that sense that you are the leader and the owner of everything, and to create platforms which bring other very smart and often more far smarter people than yourself onto a platform. As I speak to you, beneath my feet, 4,000 meters, in fact, beneath my feet, there is a drill drilling towards the center of the earth. And 2 days ago, we got the temperature readings from our drill, and it is at 155 degrees centigrade. This is going to be the Eden deep geothermal plant. I am obsessed by how middle-aged men largely around the world have stopped progress in energy. And I'm really looking forward to Dr. Lee's comments about this, that I believe, and I will assert here, that if we all work together, the world can be living off renewable energy by 2030, not 2100, as the IPCC seem to think. Baseload, which is what geothermal gives you, means that when the sun don't shine and the wind don't blow, you can still get energy. And if you are working on renewable energies and we are independent, it means that you don't need about 40% of the world's great container ships that are taking petroleum products around the world, nor do you need about 23% of the world's truck journeys moving coal and other burnable materials around the world. I just felt I'd throw that in. In March of this last year, not 2021, 2020, I decided to reread a book which, when I read it first, I considered to be the best book I'd ever read. And I read it again, and I couldn't believe that although it was written in 1969, it remains as vivid today as it was then. And it is an operating manual to planet Earth. And it's written by Buckminster Fuller, and in which he talks about the operating manuals to planet Earth. And we decided in the end of March last year that Eden was going to turn itself inside out, that having got to a point where we were very proud and smug that we had over 1 million visitors a year, 1.1 million visitors a year, and we were profitable, we felt, wouldn't it be terrible to go to your grave saying you had built a tourist attraction about sustainability without actually having worked with others to create a massive social shift? So our sewage systems are all going circular. Our water systems are going circular. We're putting solar right across our car parks, to the point that with the deep geothermal and solar will mean that every single visitor that comes to Eden, even if you came from the planet Venus, would be carbon negative. So where does that take us? We decided about 4 years ago to go to develop our international projects. And the first place we went to was the most important country on earth, in my view, which is China. China, a civilization of 4,000 years, based actually on working with the grain of nature, was the perfect place for Eden to go to demonstrate partnership. And we went with our friends at the company Xinna, who persuaded us that they were going to be great partners. And in partnership with Xinna and the city of Qingdao, we decided we were going to build an Eden project on a piece of derelict land near what is going to be called the new technical district, which since we started building has become almost a city in its own right already, dedicated to green technology and artificial intelligence. The Qingdao project is focusing on water. It is built, if you can imagine an arrowhead and imagine someone has knocked off the pointy bit, we have a river on either side of us and the ocean in front of us. And the land that we're building on was quite lightly poisoned by nitrates and salts. And at the time of speaking today, It's about halfway up. We're hoping to open the beginning of 2024, although it might be at the end of 2023. And we have carried out the same principles of development there as we did at Eden. We realized that if you want to build something that is sustainable, there are the obvious things, which are the audit of the materials you're building with, the energy you're using, the utilities you're using, and so on, and how you dispense with sewage, and how you get the maximum out of having a no waste ecology and economy. But the other thing is something I learned by mistake, because in 1998 I went to see a big project in Wales, in England, which had a garden festival, which was an economic regeneration project, which failed horribly. And I went to see the people who'd organized it, and I was so fortunate that these people were honest with me and told me what they'd done wrong. And so I was able to avoid a lot of the mistakes that they made. And I have to be honest, many of the mistakes they made, I might have made as well, had I not been warned. The biggest mistake is if you're going to develop something for sustainability and you want a long-term success, do use that word stakeholder properly. Understand that if you build something and you say on day one, we need your help and we need you to supply this and we need you to make that, if you don't give people warning, they can't do it. So the Welsh project, the problem was that they said they were going to build this thing and they got hold of all their suppliers far too late. So at Eden, we get hold of our suppliers about 2 years before we begin. We develop a process of teaching and training towards sustainable production, organic, ethical production, if it's food products and so on. And we then look at how capitalism or commercial insight can be of assistance. Most people who say that they are ethical businesses still pay people just on time. And they offer short-term contracts. And they offer short-term contracts because that's supposed to be so good for business. However, let us imagine that all of us on this call, Dr. Lee, myself, Xiaolan, and whatever, we then say we're going to have an ice cream company. We cannot become a big enough ice cream company to supply the Eden project if we only order our ice cream in 3-month batches. You just can't do it. And no bank will lend you the money to grow your business to supply us unless you have a long-term contract. So we do something unusual. We offer long-term contracts, 18-month long contracts to suppliers. And we say, if at the end of 18 months, the people who supply you are also ethical producers, then we'll give you another 18 months. And this leads to a tremendous leverage of your pounds or renminbi. It means that every pound you spent is actually growing in the community, to the point where Cambridge University have done an economic impact study on Eden, UK, and we've put something like £2.25 billion into the local economy. And yet we cost £140 million to build. And this is another issue I think many of the panelists will be puzzling with, which is that in the old school economics, what happens is you measure your investment and the return from investment in a very narrow framework in terms of what that business or operation is returning. If I said to you, invest £140 million in an environmental visitor destination 280 miles from London, and we will make a profit, a surplus of £2 million a year, you would walk away. Just like that, you'd walk away. It's not good enough, is it? If I said to you, as a nation, UK PLC, will you invest £140 million in a project that is putting 60 million pounds into the local economy every year, year after year after year, and enabling other businesses to grow? You would say, wow, we'll rip your arms off to enable you to do that. And I know that all of you know that, but one of the things is there's very little literature about how sustainable planning for, if you like, a muscular localism, there's very little written about it, very little. A lot of it's talk, but not much is written to demonstrate to people who are the developers of national policy, to enable them to break away from the old-fashioned accounting model of how you would measure the viability of what we're doing. Qingdao is going to open, as I say, at the end of 2023, beginning of 2024. We're expecting somewhere between 2.5 and 3.5 million visitors. We always go cautious because we are superstitious. Even Walt Disney was superstitious. He always built his car parks too small because he felt if he built a really big car park, he'd be struck by lightning for his arrogance. So we're working with a lot of different partners in China. We're finding it a really good place to work. I think the reason why the sort of subjects we're talking about today are so important is we know that the media make a big meal out of the differences between nations. And also they have a culture called if it bleeds, it leads, which means we will lead our stories always with bad news. Yet, let me tell you a couple of things about our friends in China. Since we have been there, this isn't because of us, every single year since 2015, China has planted more trees every year than in the rest of the world put together. Put together. Isn't that astonishing? And when I look at the work that's going on beside us in terms of cleaning the rivers next to us, there is a huge awareness of the need to create a new green enlightenment, a new green revolution. And once again, we in the so-called West are going to be unbelievably slow. Our arrogance leads us every time to, for example, when we started working in China, people said, why are you working in China when China and India are creating most of the carbon in the atmosphere? Why should we bother? And I just looked at them, I said, what part of a big market do you not understand? And still there was this dull-eyed look through most people. So today, ha, 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 the biggest producers in the world of solar are, guess who? China. The biggest producers of wind turbines are China, and so on. And the reason I love working in China is there is a realization that on the subject of the environment and ecology, we have safe territory. We don't need to argue about intellectual property or statecraft or anything. It's something which we all share, and it's a safe ground for us to collaborate on. So for all of us listening, let's all get there, because if we can get the environment sorted by collaboration, all the rest will look after itself. I spoke to a bunch of students the other day, and they were all feeling a bit sort of blue about the future. And I said, do you realize that you're living at a time which is more exciting than at any time since humans came out onto the savannas? Really, as we speak in America, clean meat, 1.7 billion pounds turnover last year, set to double this year. Guess who is about to invest big time in it? China. Fermentation technology, one of the most exciting food production technologies. Where is it coming from at the moment? It's coming from West Coast America. I believe that within probably 5 years, we will be producing cheap, affordable food deliverable anywhere in the world using high tech in such a way that the food production that we currently look at will become niche. As a farmer myself, I'm expecting fully to be farming far less animals and selling them for an awful lot more, because it will be for a niche market. Now, if I was to say to my students, why should you focus on green technology? I would say simply that I see coming at us at a speed which is unbelievable, this revolution. And people are talking about it a bit like, do you remember when we first had DVDs and videos and CDs? None of us believed that they would take off. And then computers that would come into the home, and then the smartphone. We're always terrible at seeing technology coming towards us. And I imagine, and I'm saying to all the people I work with, within 15 years, virtually all economies will be muscular local economies. They will not be centralized economies. We will build incredibly efficient local economies. And it's already happening. You can see it all over where I live here in the far west of England. Different farms are producing different types of food to supply farmers' markets in the town. And you suddenly see supermarkets stopping the ridiculous thing of catching a fish in Cornwall, sending it up to the north of England and bringing it back to Cornwall. It's all becoming much more effective, much more efficient. And what Xinna was saying at the start is absolutely right. For me, the biggest battleground isn't technology, It is actually our own moral compass. It is the ethical basis under which we collectively agree to do business. And that is why companies like BDO are important. This isn't a plug for BDO. I could have used any accountancy firm. The issue is, how can we start measuring what we do in terms of the well-being that we produce for the environment? How can we punish those who seek to be protected by everybody who's in business on the grounds that they're in business, rather than that they're doing ethical business? And I can see everywhere I look, it's as if we're all waking up to look at new structures, whether it be for B corporations or much further down the line. And I think probably within 18 months, ESG will feel like a very, very old-fashioned kind of strategy, because it's a bit, if you have to say it, you aren't it. It's a bit like Tony Blair when he was Prime Minister wanting to be cool Britannia. If you say you're cool, you're not cool. And let's be honest, that's true, isn't it? So look, I better get off, because you've got far more interesting people to talk to than me. And they'll be saying some really seriously research stuff rather than me talking as if I was, at breakfast with you. I want you to hold on to one thing. Tell every young person you know that today is the most exciting time to be alive, because you are living at a time when science has discovered that the bacteria in our body, that the fungi in the soil are all pretty much the same thing. And maybe you are living at a time when spiritually, your generation, your young generation, are going to be around to discover we are all creatures. We're not special. We are creatures. We are earthlings. And it's a magnificent time to be alive. So over to the smart people. Xinna, thank you for the 15 minutes. And I look forward to hearing my smart friends.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks for the wonderful input and much food for thought. I think sustainability is the one thing, as you mentioned, it's one thing that can actually make people and country put aside all the differences and jointly make something together. And I totally agree with your view on the fundamental change of the moral compass, the collective moral compass. Only through that we can make sustainability work. I particularly like the fact that you outlined the China's effort in terms of the sustainability development. I'm perhaps biased, but I do agree that China is going to lead the effort, and probably it's all coming soon. Now, just quickly back onto the UK, onto Dr. Li Yao, who is using the technology and know-how to transition business and communities to a net zero carbon future. Li Yao is the founder and MD of Q Energy, a leading AI-based tech company. He has extensive knowledge and experience on innovations in smart cities and IoT technologies. Li has been awarded as one of the top 5 of Asian tech stars in 2018. Li, could you tell us about the projects you've been working on?
Yes, of course. Just to make sure everyone can hear me, okay? Yeah?
Yes.
Good. Yeah, thanks, Xinna, for obviously inviting me to join this very interesting webinar. And it was fascinating to hear from Sir Tim. And I particularly like, the kind of the end message that Tim was giving to the young generations about that's the spirit we need, right? So everyone is talking about climate change, all these things are a bit gloomy, but we need to have the spirit, we have the science, we have the technology, we just need to push on and go for it. And also, yeah, back to my point here, I just realized, obviously, I'm the only person have some slides here, so I'll try to make it short. I'll try to make it more interesting so that you're not bored. So a little bit about myself, as you know, Xinna has introduced. I've done my PhD education basically in the UK. I've worked in the investment bank. I work in the university. I kind of settled in the technology sector. worked on a company which does all the smart city tech, and Q Energy is the second company that I founded, which was founded back in 2018, about 3 years old. George, can you move into the next slide, please? So the Q Energy, just a little bit about the company itself. 3 years old, as I said, and what we are is a smart energy service provider. So we're looking at building this kind of a net zero carbon communities using the technologies. So in this next 10 or 9 minutes, I'll try to bring about 3 messages to the audience. The first is more about practically, the net zero target regulations and what does that mean to people, particularly to businesses, because that's our kind of a main market. And the second message I want to kind of bring up is with the current kind of a situation, what are the investments and opportunities out there? I'll use a few case studies to bring my point on that one. And the last message is about the innovation and also the knowledge transfer and knowledge sharing between different places, different countries. In particular, I'm going to talk about one of the projects we are doing in Nigeria, which kind of bring this two countries together in terms of not technology and in terms of other communications. Everyone knows that we have the target that we need to hit by 2050, and then there's already regulations for big corporations. There's about over 11,000 big corporations in the UK, which they need to report their carbon and then do auditing. But then one main question is, what does that mean to the whole supply chain, to the small businesses? Because the point is that, give example, the Jaguar Land Rover is already asking all its supply chain to become net zero by a certain time period. That basically going to put a lot of strength to the small and medium-sized businesses. And then there's going to be a lot of requirements from the government as well. So the government just have published the new procurement regulations, which they will require whoever procure the services to become net zero and have a plan. Going to the next slide, I want us to say that obviously we are here to provide that kind of services. We provide the reports and auditing for the carbon reporting, and also we help the businesses to achieve them. We have the technology to do that. Going to the next one, as I said, the next message I want to say is that everyone is talking about net zero and what are the kind of opportunities out there. So here I want us to talk about 2 projects which we're working on. One is that we're working with one of the property developer, looking at one of the town center regeneration project. It's a new project, and the council has the ambition to become net zero. So that is a kind of a new element which was not there before. So what we have done is we basically done the consultancy for the property developer, and then designed a net zero solution, which that includes the ground source heat pump, also the battery storage, the EV charging, and everything working together, so that can give that development that kind of a benefit. The second project I want to touch on is the decarbonization project, which we are working with a Manchester Foundation Trust. And that is part of these, which I'm going to be mentioning later, the public sector decarbonization scheme from the government, which they put forward funding for the public sector to change the old boilers, to use a new technology, and to kind of reduce their carbon emission. So next slide, what does that mean? Is that if you look at this project I've been working on, first of all, as I mentioned, the businesses has to change, and that will actually drive certain investment from the business world because they have to. The second is about the new development because they have to become net zero, so there will be more investment to looking at how this new model will work, as I mentioned. The third one is actually driving by the government. A few examples here is that I mentioned about public sector decarbonization scheme, which they already put forward about £1 billion. The Green Heat Network Fund, which particularly looking at the district heating scheme, because heating is one of the big carbon emission in the UK. The base also put forward the next 5 years plan, which is called the Net Zero Innovation Portfolio, which that is another 1 billion. There are more funding and the grant coming from the government. There's also, I think, one called the Green Home, which that basically promote the household to do more kind of a technology in some green technology in order to reduce their carbon emission. So that brings quite a bit of opportunities for different sector to work together. Okay. So the next one, which I'm going to talk, is this Nigerian intelligent clean energy marketplace project, which we are working in Abuja. So this is partly funded by the Department of the International Development. And really what they are trying to address is this kind of energy trilemma, reliable energy at low cost with low carbon, which is very difficult to achieve. So in this project, this is something we want to address. So just give a bit more background in terms of Nigeria, in terms of the access to the electricity. I think one big fact is that 85 million Nigerian, which is about 40% of the population, don't really have access to the grid electricity. Even some of them they don't have a reliable supply. So so what we have done, if we go to the next slide, if you look at, there's a few pictures here. On the left-hand side, there's a very good school, which is on the outskirts of Abuja. And on the right-hand side, that's a neighboring kind of a community. So what we have done is that we put solar generation, battery storage, and linking that with the school. And then what we've run the cable from the school to the neighboring community. And we choose 10 households in this project to participate. And they have been given, some of them being given PV solar panels, some of them given some battery storage. So what we've done is we created a small microgrid that not only the school can give the excessive energy to the community, they can also trade. Because doing charity is simple, people invest in money, they do this, and then people get obviously the free electricity. But what we are trying to do here is to enabling trading so that the community people will get the reliable energy, and also they can pay the school to reuse that energy. In this way, the school will want to reinvest in this because they will get their money back, and also they can do something good. At the same time, the community will be able to have access to 24/7 reliable green energy, which they are willing to pay for. So I think the next slide gives a bit more of a pictures of what we've done. This project is coming to an end. I'm going to Nigeria, I think, in next month, just to kind of wrap up the project. It's been regarded quite highly, so we are really looking to expand this and to look at the business model and to get to other areas of Nigeria. So I think that's everything I want to talk, and hopefully, that gives some kind of ideas from the UK-wide what we are doing here, and what is the climate, and what we are doing across the continent as well.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. And I must apologize to the audience. We have run into some technical difficulties this morning, for various things. It's just typical, it happens on the day that we actually run the webinar. So let me introduce our next speaker, Professor Xiaolan Fu, Oxford University and consultant to UN, World Bank, and other multilateral institutions. She's the founding director of the Technology and Management Center for Development, TMCD. She has published extensively, including China's Path to Innovation, China's Role in Global Economic Recovery, and is editor-in-chief of the Journal of Chinese Economic and Business Studies. So over to you, Professor Xiaolan.
Thank you, Xinna, for the kind introduction. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are. So it's a great pleasure to speak at this interesting forum. And thanks BDO for, and also ECBF for the invitation. I am a professor in the university, and my recent research concerns a lot on policy, science, technology, and innovation policy. So originally, I worried what my research could be too abstract, too boring for our audience. So I have told Melin and Xinna that they may, maybe better to find a more suitable speaker. I told them twice, and they kept on contact me. And so I think I did have done research on the green transformation, green technology policy, and recently the green windows opportunity for the developing countries. So that is one areas of my research. And also I have been working on Africa innovation for about 10 years, collaborating with people in Nigeria, in Ghana, in Tanzania, Kenya, South Africa, etc. So that's what I have done. Of course, I did quite many research on innovation in China and based in the UK. So I think today I will base on my research and experience, and so sharing with you some of my my thoughts and the findings. Hope that could be useful for your business strategy development and decision making. So I will focus on two main questions. Points. One is the existence of green windows of opportunity, and how this could open a path to economic development in the developing countries. And secondly, I will focus on why and how the business communities across the UK, China, and Africa can work together to create and seize the green window of opportunity. So these are the two main points that I want to make. So recently, together with colleagues in Denmark, Italy, and also in other European countries, UK and Germany, etc., we have done a series of studies looking at China's catch-up in the renewable energy sector. So including solar PV, wind turbine, biomass, hydrogen, etc. Looking at China's catch-up in these fields, and then we identified actually for a country, for a developing country, 40 years ago it's a low-income country, now it's still a middle-income country, are able to build its production and also technological capabilities in the green sector and open up, actually create and open up a green windows of opportunity. So this windows opportunity actually was, the term was created by some famous colleague in Europe, like Luxoit, suggesting that the developing countries can catch up to the world frontier or even move, beyond the world frontier by seizing some windows of opportunity. And these windows of opportunity may occur because of some sudden market changes or because of some technological breakthroughs. So based on this, we were thinking whether this green revolution, green technology can present a green windows of opportunity. And does this exist? Is this a true opportunity for the developing countries? And if how does this come out? And also how countries can seize the opportunity. Some people looking at South Korea, some companies like Samsung has seized the opportunity, but most of the companies have not been able to seize. So how to seize the opportunity? So by looking at the renewable energy, then we find out that actually the Chinese companies have been able to seize such opportunity and catch up to the world frontier. Some is the world frontier of production, and some can go even further, but and also move to the world technological frontier. So if like in the wind turbine, China is more, have the production capacity, not necessarily in the technological lead, but in solar PV, biomass, China moved to the technological frontier too. And of course, hydrogen, water hydro power station technology too. So, so our analysis find out these opportunities are created in this green sector, mostly first triggered by institutional change. The regulatory change, policy change to push for the green transformation, which created the opportunity, the market demand, and also policy support. Some of the technology are there, but when it become a phenomenon, and this kind of institutional change is very important, which means government policy and a push, regulatory change. And then now is this year, the UK will host the COP26. This kind of the whole global societal awareness change. And this can create a huge market and become a green windows of opportunity. And these opportunities exist, and the countries can, seize the opportunities and benefit from it and this also will develop a new path for economic development, because this is a new industry create jobs and incomes, etc. So how to seize this? In addition to, you have to have the technological capacity, your innovation system have to, being able to support the production in companies and also government support. Financial support, policy support can both help the firms to seize such opportunity. So developing countries, African firms can, not only Africa, of course, Latin America, South Asia too. They can seize such an opportunity and make it become an industry and a path for economic development. And among these, looking at China's experience, then international collaboration, economic collaboration, science, technology, and innovation collaboration are very important. China's catch-up in the solar PV panel benefited greatly from the migrants, return diasporas. And China's catch-up in the wind turbine, in terms of production capacity, benefit a lot from the international innovation collaboration, technology collaboration, joint ventures especially, and also overseas R&D center. And also biomass. China, is catching up. And again, in this sector, the international technology transfer through multinationals. Multinational transfer to a lead firm then diffuse the technology to the rest of the firms, become a part. So that's why the collaboration, North-South, UK and Africa collaboration, and the South-South collaboration, China and Africa collaboration, both can be opportunities to help the African countries to build, to create and seize this green windows of opportunity. So that's my first point. And then my second point then relate to why and how business communities, across the UK and China and Africa should work together to create and seize these green windows of opportunity. So firstly, I just mentioned, I have done research on innovation in Africa for 10 years. I just recently published a book called Innovation Under the Radar. So what I found is that some people thought there is no innovation in Africa. And so with this question, if this is true, with this question 10 years ago, I started my journey and visit Africa and doing research in collaboration with scholars and policy makers and also business sector in Africa. And what I found is that actually the African business communities are creative. They're very creative. They're much more than dynamic, resilient than I originally expected. They are innovative. However, the type of innovation are not captured by the traditional indicators. If you look at patent, little patent, less than 1%, the whole continent accounted for less than 1% in the world's total. Scientific publications, again, less than 1% of the world's total. And looking at the R&D expenditure, again, less than 1% of the world's total. The whole continent accounts for less than. However, if you look at whether they have done something new to the country, new to the firm, and whether they have produced something new or used some new methods for production, yes, they are. The answers, is around 40, is higher than 40%. 40%. Even in the informal sector, which is a huge sector in Africa, the firms answering that they are doing something new or significantly improved are more than 30%. And why they are doing this? They told me that I survive because I innovate. They have to survive. So it's a surviving competition pressure pushes them, to innovate, and also entrepreneurial spirit lead them to innovate. However, this under the radar innovation means these are innovation without scientific research and the development backup. So it's learning based or entrepreneurship based. And this innovation face constraints, to leapfrog to the world frontier, to realize the green transition, and also to not being left behind in the fourth industrial revolution. So, and also in this process, a lot of new ideas come from abroad. A lot of new ideas come from the trade partners, from multinationals, from their relatives, the migrants working in US, in UK, in Europe, etc. And also they use mobile phone to find out new ideas overseas. So this international collaboration and the new ideas become a very important source for innovation there. So that is why this under the radar innovation in Africa really needs international innovation collaboration to help them to seize this green windows of opportunity.
Totally agree, Xiaolan. Professor Xiaolan, sorry, I'm just conscious about the time.
Okay, I quickly.
Yeah, you go on.
Okay, I just read my points there. Then point 2 is China's experience suggests that international technology transfer through multinationals can be, and international trade and collaboration will, help the developing countries to create and seize the windows of opportunity. Thirdly, the UK is a leader in the world in green technology. I think a lot of data and the Sir team and also Dr. Li Yao both show that UK's advantage. Fourthly, China since 2013 is 8 years ago, China has become the world's largest investor in renewable energy. So China is now the world's biggest investor in green technology. The R&D, and it's not only recent 1 year, 2 years, it's about 7, 8 years. China has consistently been the world leader in R&D, in green R&D and green technology. So China's leadership in solar PV power, hydropower, biomass, etc., can become a source for knowledge transfer for Africa. Fifthly, the Green Belt and Road Initiative. So it's again another opportunity that the firms, companies in all the 3 countries can use, can use and benefit. And especially now they're talking about third-party collaboration. So this means Belt Road is not China and the Belt Road countries, but China, UK, and Africa can work together. Number 6, and as 13 mentioned, this is the safest area for UK-China collaboration. And I remember 13 mentioned, this is all the people on the planet have a shared territory, is the Earth and the planet. We need to look after it. And this is our shared community. So I think this is the safest area for all international collaboration. My last point is that our experience from the current COVID-19 and global responses to it suggests international partnership are very important and can play a very important role. This year, I produced a report for the United Nations on, the partnerships in response of the COVID-19 pandemic, and we found international partnership can play a very important role to address this global pandemic, global challenge. And the private sector, the companies are very important, play important role because they are major innovators, because they have the networks on the ground to help the public, and they have the ability to deliver compared to many of other organizations. So that's the advantage of the business. And the success factor are shared goals, trust in each other, flexibility, and of course, funding support. So I think this collaboration between these 3 countries in the business community, and also, can also between business and the public institutions can play a very important role.
Xiaolan, we can talk about more on the sector, the private sector, in the Q&A session. But let's try and give Prince another try and see whether we can connect him. Prince, are you here?
Okay, can you hear me?
Ah, lovely. Good to see you, Prince.
Okay.
We're connected. So Prince is a co-founder and vice president of the Lagos China Business Initiative. He's also the director of Economic Development Nigeria for Council of International Chambers of Commerce. Prince has spent the past 15 years looking outwardly for sustainability related opportunities for Nigeria as well as the Africa continent. Prince, I'm afraid we are running short of time. Could you use the next 5 minutes to outline your interest in the high density food sector and the renewable energy?
Okay, thank you very much. I think by way of introduction, I'm actually going to continue from where Professor Xiaolan stopped off. I'm talking about windows of opportunities that she talked about. And in that vein, I'm actually going to say that the world needs to begin to see Africa as partners in progress. If you permit me to make quick reference to the Berlin Conference of 1884, of course, it took place on the 15th of November. What happened at the Berlin Conference was you had a congregation of the world leaders who sat down and in layman's language divided the conquered world amongst themselves. The world has moved beyond where we say Africa, you shave a man's hair in his absence. What that means is that the world must recognize that Africa has a voice and must therefore partner with Africa, must therefore see Africa as partners in progress. The world therefore must see that if Africa is not developing, it behoves on the rest of the developed world to see what they can do to ensure that Africa develops alongside with the rest of the world. I think that's way we can have an equitable system for wealth distribution. Professor talked about exploration. In the Berlin Conference, what you had was exploitation. So in my own term, I think what we need to start doing is responsible exploration, responsible partnerships, symbiotic partnerships, win-win partnership, knowledge management or knowledge transfer. What the world knows, the world needs to share with the rest of Africa. Africa is a population of 1.3 billion people. That's a huge number. I'm taking Nigeria as a microcosm. Nigeria constitutes about 206 million people. That's huge. And bringing it down to what she talked about in renewable energy, of course, I will make reference to what Dr. Lee is doing in Nigeria. About 85 million Nigerians, representing about 43% of Nigeria, do not have access to grid electricity. Now, that is currently costing Nigeria about $29 billion yearly. So that's why I'm excited about what Dr. Lee is doing. And I think it's something that the rest of the world needs to replicate. Gas, for instance, natural gas constitutes about 39% of Nigeria energy supply. Hydro constitutes about 35%. Oil constitutes about 24%. Coal constitutes about 0.4%. Therefore, about 64.4% of Nigeria energy is directly linked to greenhouse gas emissions. So you see that what Dr. Lee is doing with the solar project in Nigeria will drastically reduce greenhouse emissions by some significant numbers. Now, you've asked me to talk about agriculture, that's high density food production and agriculture. And I'll just talk about that very briefly. The United Nations has projected that by the year 2030, Nigeria will be the third largest population in the world. So what that means is that you will have more mouths to feed. Now, what we are doing on a personal level is that I currently run a farm project in Nigeria, and we're trying to see how we can expand that. Nigeria has about 36 states. We're trying to see how we can expand that to at least to the 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria, and then begin to look at exports. Because we know that Nigeria doesn't produce enough to feed her growing population. So what needs to be done? The world can look at the greenhouse technology that allows food produce to grow around the world, to grow on yearly basis, season and in and out of season. What that means is that Nigeria currently relies on some crude form of farming. So we wait for seasons to grow our food. But the world has gone beyond that. So to avert the current poverty that permeates Nigeria, we need to share knowledge from the world on how to grow food produce in and out of season. So that's for agriculture. And then let me also just quickly mention, because of time, let me just quickly talk about waste management and what a company in Nigeria is planning to do. I'm in talks with the CEO of Dino Nanotech Technology and what they do currently, or what they plan to do, because the company is not yet in motion, is to convert disused tires, that's disused car tires, into household building components. So what that will do is the reduction of waste tires in Nigeria, and also will have access to cheaper and more environmental friendly way of growing, of building houses, and of taking care of our environment. Now, let me quickly state, if you permit me just to read my notes. My notes states that the end product of the disused tires would include indoor and outdoor furnitures, construction materials, and building components. These components will be used either individually or collectively to construct complete houses for affordable housing schemes or emergency accommodation for disaster mitigation and similar applications. So in other words, what these disused tires, when they are converted, they could provide us with cheaper housing materials so that we have access to affordable housing schemes, and in the event of emergencies, these houses can be built quite easily. Again, because of our time, let me just quickly round off. I see you already signaling me to do that. I'm going to round off with Professor's last point of windows of opportunity and how the world can collaborate, particularly developed countries can collaborate with developing countries to ensure that everybody grows at the same rate. But as I stated when I started, I say it has to be responsible exploration, not exploitation. In the 1884 Berlin Conference, what you have was exploitation. So what we need to have now is responsible exploration, responsible partnership, symbiotic partnership, a win-win situation that ensure that both the developing world and the developed world win at the same time. And then what we also need to have is knowledge management or knowledge transfer in such a manner that the developed world is willing to share our knowledge with the rest of the world. Now, let me round off with this. Like Professor also said, what the global pandemic has taught us, what COVID-19 has taught the rest of the world, is that we are all in this together. If China goes down, the rest of the world goes down. If the US goes down, the rest of the world goes down. If Africa goes down, the rest of the world goes down. Because if there's a pandemic in China, it will affect the rest of the world. If there's a pandemic in the UK, it will affect the rest of the world. And if there's a pandemic in Africa, it will affect the rest of the world. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I hope that we can continue this discussion on how responsible exploration, responsible partnership can happen amongst all the nations of the earth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prince, for your passionate speech. Now we're quickly moving on to the Q&A session. Let's just, well, I suppose we, because of the time constraint, let's probably pick a couple of these to answer, but we can address this post-event. So John Adams asked that, does the Eden project include Scope 3 emissions by visitors, cars, and trains, etc.? How is this measured? Tim, are you able to?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. We don't include emissions as a general measurement for our visitors on the grounds they come from all over the place, and it's impossible to measure that. What we do is we take a notional sense of a 30-mile radius around us as being the logical area from which people would have come, and work out a maths for the emissions and offset those. By the end of next year, that won't be necessary at all, because we will be just offsetting. That's not, I hate the phrase, but we will be making such a contribution, a positive contribution, that it will not be a measurable thing. You're quite right, though, to point out the difficulties of these things. The problem with it, for me, if I might make a bigger point, is that it often ends up with conversations which are a bit like, how many angels can you get on the end of a pin, when the bigger picture is then missed. I think the speed with which we can become completely energy independent through renewable energy is the single most important driver. And I think the problem is that most politicians, I had the misfortune of having to spend quite some time with politicians recently at the G7, and the staggering thing, absolutely staggering thing, is that the jokes that you might make in a pub or in a cafe about lack of insight is frighteningly true when you come across it in the flesh. That is why I believe fora like these are hugely important. So there is a kind of atmospheric wave of thought leadership coming from we, the people, so to speak, that affect confidence in the future. It's really stupid. I mean, we can do so much. Dr. Lee was talking about it earlier. The barriers are human will, not technology. And we need to create a culture in which we start saying, why not? Let's go and do it. So I've attempted to avoid your question. I hope I've got away with it. I doubt it. But that's as good as you're going to get.
Thank you, Tim. Now, coming on to the next one, Nigel Davis is asking Dr. Li Yao, are the battery and solar technologies recyclable at the end of their useful life, or do they present a disposal issue?
Yeah, I can give it a try. Obviously, I'm not an expert in the hardware side, but I mean, solar has been there for many years, and same as the battery. But I think the industry become bigger and bigger, then this disposal issue is actually becoming more and more urgent. From my understanding, from the battery perspective, the industry already started this kind of starting with a new battery and then recycling them and then dispose. I think there's already a standard out, which industries follow on that. So there will be more batteries will be built. I mean, but I think there will be a disposal issue, because in the end of the day, we're talking about this kind of harmful chemicals and also the metals as well. But I do not believe this will be a biggest issue. In the end of the day, the reason we're having this lithium-ion battery is that it does provide benefits. So if you do this kind of benefit and cost analysis, then the benefits still overweight the cost and also the kind of a disadvantage side of it. So that's my thinking on this.
Thank you. Now, do we have the opportunity to squeeze in one more from Yupon? What are the panel expectations of COP26? Will we get more rhetoric, or will there be serious targets set? and collaborations to achieve them. I suppose this is for all the speakers.
Someone's got to go first. Okay. I believe that if you set your targets high, you'll be disappointed. So let's set our targets high. I believe actually there will be far more coming out of COP than we believe, because we've become so disappointed with achievement so far that if I was a gambling person, I think that an awful lot has been going on behind the scenes and that there will be some meaningful targets set. I may be an incurable, hopeful person, but I actually think the world is changing. And despite everything else that's bad, I think climate is something that brings us all together in common cause.
I would agree with that. And as an accountant, I'm well aware of one target that's at least, it's been set by the COP26, which is bring in the climate-related financial disclosures as a mandatory requirement. And I'm aware that the UK government is actually working very closely with institutions such as the Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosures to actually make the UK economy as a whole to make the climate-related disclosure mandatory by 2025. So in the accounting world, in fact, I believe a lot of us are working very hard right now to help with the overall regulatory framework and the reporting and the assurance for going forward. So I think it's time for me to actually close today's session. Apologies again for all these technical issues. I now can give my arm a rest because I've been holding my phone because I had access issue with the laptop, and Prince also has some issues. But here we are. So first of all, I want to say a big thank you to the speakers for your time and insights that's shared in this webinar, and for a very engaging and passionate conversation on sustainability. And especially, Prince, you have actually presented this huge opportunity that's to be had for the collaboration with Africa. And also a special thank you to London and Partners, is another BDO's long-term partner supporting the UK-China corridor. The local team ensured our event reached a wider audience in China. So hopefully there's a bit of something to take home for everyone in our audience today. So Eden Project, to me personally, is telling us actually there is a way to live sustainably, live our lives. That we don't need to take more from the planet than the planet can sustain. And sustainability also brings these massive market opportunities to all businesses and individuals. And every speaker today has emphasized on collaboration. We believe that collaboration leads the way. Whatever differences that we may have, the world can be united on the sustainability front. And lastly, to our colleagues and industry peers, this could be a historical moment for us, as Tim has emphasized, because sustainability requires the measurement and disclosure. And our efforts are in fact a crucial step to a net zero carbon future. So we will keep you informed of the relevant events and topics in the future. Meanwhile, if you have any thoughts and feedbacks to share, you could use the ECBF's website, which is englandchina.org. And there's a page you can put in your contact details and comments. And you can also click on the LinkedIn icon to get onto the ECBF's LinkedIn page. You could write directly to us. We will, after the event, send you an email so you have our contact details. Lastly, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the day and hope to see you soon.
No problem. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.